I still remember the exact moment I decided to call in the cavalry. Not when that punk kid with the parking badge sneered at my service pins. Not when he mocked my limp as I fumbled for quarters. It was when he looked at my license plate, the one with the Purple Heart insignia, and said, "Don't care if you're a vet. Rules are rules, old man." Old man. I'd been called worse, of course, in the jungles of Vietnam, in the deserts of Iraq, in the mountains of Afghanistan. But somehow, in a suburban parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon, those two words hit harder than any combat zone insult. That's when I made the call. "Mac, it's Jack Harrington. Remember Operation Thunderclap? Well, I need a different kind of extraction." Now, 6 months earlier, I'd moved back to Millfield, the sleepy Midwest town I'd left 50 years before. The same town that had sent me off with parades and welcome home banners for each of my 3 tours. No parade this time, just a small pension check, a medical discharge, and nightmares that hadn't faded in 5 decades. My daughter Sarah had insisted I move closer after the second heart attack. "Dad, you can't live alone in Montana anymore. It's not safe." Safety. Funny concept for a man who'd spent his life running toward danger. I chose Millfield because it was where everything began. Where I'd been captain of the football team, where I'd kissed Mary Lou Jenkins under the bleachers before shipping out. Where I'd been somebody before becoming just another old man with war stories nobody wanted to hear. The apartment Sarah found me was decent enough. First floor, no stairs to navigate with my bad knee. Close to the VA hospital. Walking distance to a diner that still served proper breakfast at proper prices. The transition wasn't easy. Civilian life never is for career military. Even at 72, after decades of structure and purpose, I found myself waking at 0500 hours, standing at attention beside my bed, waiting for orders that would never come. I tried to stay busy. Physical therapy twice a week, volunteer work at the American Legion, weekly calls with Sarah and the grandkids I barely knew. But the emptiness lingered, the feeling of being a relic, obsolete. Then came the letter from Mac, Colonel James Mack. McAllister had been my commanding officer in Special Forces, one of the finest soldiers I'd ever served with. We'd stayed in loose contact over the years, Christmas cards mostly. His letter was brief, a reunion for our old unit. Just a handful of survivors, meeting at a roadside steakhouse off Highway 16. "Might be the last time, Jack," he'd written. "Doctors don't give me much road ahead. Let's see the old team once more." How could I refuse? The day of the reunion, I spent hours getting ready, pressed my best shirt with military precision, polished my shoes until they gleamed, pinned my medals to my jacket, not all of them, just the ones that mattered, the ones that remembered fallen friends. I was nervous as a fresh recruit. Would they recognize me? Would I recognize them? We'd been young men then, immortal and unbreakable. Now we were old, patched together with replacement parts and prescription medications. I left early, allowing extra time for my slow driving. The GPS on my phone, a gift from Sarah that I barely understood, directed me to a shopping plaza with a restaurant at the far end. The lot was crowded, families and teenagers taking up most spaces. I circled twice before finding a spot near the entrance. The parking meter caught me by surprise. I hadn't brought change, hadn't thought I'd need it. My fingers, stiff with arthritis, fumbled with my wallet. There was an app to pay according to the sign, but technology and I were reluctant acquaintances at best. "I'll just run in quick," I muttered to myself. "Pay the bill and be right back." That's when I saw him, the parking attendant. Couldn't have been more than 25. Crisp uniform, clipboard in hand, swaggering between cars like he owned the asphalt. The gleam in his eye when he spotted my expired meter reminded me of MPs looking for soldiers breaking curfew. "Sir, you need to pay or move your vehicle," he said, already writing on his pad. "I know, son. Just having trouble with the machine. Give me a minute. It's clearly marked. 50 cents per 15 minutes. I dug through my pockets, finding only a few pennies and my medication. "Look, I'm meeting some old war buddies. I'll just run in and get change." Can't leave the vehicle unattended in an unpaid spot. His eyes flicked to my license plate, then to the service pins on my jacket. A flicker of something, recognition, maybe even respect, crossed his face, then vanished. "I've fought in 3 wars for this country," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "Surely you can give an old soldier 5 minutes." The kid's face hardened. "Don't care if you're a vet. Rules are rules, old man. I'm calling the tow truck." Old man. Something inside me. Something I thought had died in the desert years ago. Suddenly, fled to life. Not rage, exactly. More like the cold, focused determination that had kept me alive in combat. I stood straighter, ignoring the pain in my knee. "What's your name, son?" "Doesn't matter. I'm doing my job." "I'm sure you think so." He was already dialing on his cell phone, turning away dismissively. "Yeah, I need a tow at Westfield Plaza, priority pickup, space 43. That's when I made my own call. Mac answered on the second ring. "Jack? Where are you? Boys are getting restless." "Mac, I'm in the parking lot. Got a situation." I explained quickly, my voice dropping into the clipped, efficient cadence of mission reports. A long pause. Then Mac's gravel voice, harder now. "Stand your ground, soldier. Extraction team inbound. ETA 5 minutes." The parking attendant was taking photos of my car now, documenting the violation. I stood beside my vehicle, one hand resting on the hood, claiming territory. "The tow truck will be here in 10 minutes, he informed me with smug satisfaction. "That'll be a $200 towing fee plus the ticket. Or you can move it now and just take the ticket." "I'll wait," I said quietly. "Your funeral." He shrugged, leaning against the next car. We stood in uncomfortable silence. Him checking his phone. Me scanning the road, listening, waiting. I heard them before I saw them. The distinctive rumble of military-grade engines. Not standard vehicles. Something heavier, more purposeful. The parking attendant heard it too. Head lifting like a deer sensing predators. Around the corner they came. Not the few aging veterans in sedans I'd expected. This was a full-blown military convoy. First, 2 massive Humvees, freshly washed, American flags snapping from their antennas. Behind them, a restored M35 cargo truck, the same model that had carried me through rice paddies half a century ago. Following that, a procession of motorcycles, many bearing POW MIA flags. The convoy slowed, then stopped, effectively blocking the parking lot entrance. Doors opened. Men emerged. Not just any men, my unit. Some in partial uniform, some in civilian clothes with military caps or jackets, all standing straight despite bent backs and replaced hips, all moving with purpose toward me. Mac led, them, leaning on a cane but moving with the authority of the colonel he'd always be. Behind him walked Thompson, our communications specialist, now with snow-white hair. Rodriguez, our medic, who'd saved my life when shrapnel caught me outside Fallujah. Jeffries, Williams, Cooper, faces weathered by time but instantly, achingly, familiar. 23 men in total, the survivors of a unit that had once numbered 60. "Colonel Harrington," Mac said formally, stopping before me and rendering a perfect salute. "Special Forces Unit 7, reporting as ordered." I returned the yah. "Salute, throat tight. At ease, Colonel." The parking attendant's eyes had gone wide, his clipboard forgotten at his side. What is this?" Mac turned, measuring the young man with a gaze that had once assessed enemy positions and extraction routes. "This, son, is what we call a show of force." His voice was mild, conversational. Non-violent, of course, just a visual reminder. Reminder of what? The attendant's voice had climbed half an octave. That some rules matter more than others. Mac gestured to our assembled unit. "Every man here has bled for this country. Colonel Harrington here was awarded the Silver Star for pulling 7 men from a burning helicopter under enemy fire. He's given his knee, half his hearing, and years of his life in service." The attendant swallowed. "I'm just doing my job." So were we, son. This from Rodriguez, stepping forward. And our job was protecting people, all people, even those who don't understand what that service costs. I found my voice at last. I apologize for not feeding the meter. I intended to pay. But calling a tow truck without giving a veteran 5 minutes to sort it out? That's not about rules. That's about power. The young man's face flushed. You can't intimidate me with this military show. I'll call the police. Please do, Mackie interrupted smoothly. Officer Daniels would love to see us. He served with 101st Airborne. In fact, he consulted his watch. I believe he's on patrol now. Should we call him for you? The attendant's jaw worked, no words emerging. His eyes darted between the assembled veterans, the blocked entrance, and my car. Calculation replaced bravado. Look, I said, softening my tone. I'm not asking for special treatment because I served. I'm asking for human decency, for understanding. That sometimes an old man struggles with parking meters and apps and change. Rodriguez stepped closer, his voice gentle. We're not here to cause trouble. We're here for our reunion, to remember those who didn't make it back, and to support our brother, just like we always have. Just like we always will, added Thompson. Something changed in the attendant's face. Not surrender, exactly. Recognition, perhaps. He looked at us, really looked. Perhaps seeing for the first time not threats or inconveniences but men who had once been young, just like him. I can void the ticket. This once. He tucked his clipboard under his arm. And cancel. The tow truck. Appreciate that, son, Mac said, extending his hand. After a moment's hesitation, the attendant shook it. My grandfather was in Vietnam, he said quietly. Never talked about it. We rarely do, I acknowledged. It's easier to be silent than to explain the inexplicable. He nodded, then reached into his pocket and pulled out some quarters. Here, this should cover 2 hours. I accepted them with dignity, not charity. Thank you. As he walked away, the tension broke. My old unit surrounded me, clapping my shoulders, cracking jokes about my still terrible parking skills, asking about my health with the blunt concern of men who'd seen each other at their worst and still stood together. Quite the extraction, Mac, I said, emotion making my voice rough. Told the boys we had a man down. Minimal details needed. Mac's eyes crinkled. They came from 3 states, Jack. Thompson flew in from Arizona this morning. Nothing was stopping. This reunion, I don't deserve... Stow that talk, Colonel. Mac's voice went hard. Every man here would walk through fire for you, just like you did for us. That's what this has always been about. As we made our way toward the restaurant, I noticed the parking attendant watching from a distance. I raised my hand in acknowledgement. After a moment, he returned the gesture. Not a wave, but something closer to a salute. Inside, around tables pushed together to accommodate our group, stories flowed like wine. Memories, both brutal and beautiful. Tales of the fallen. Updates on children, grandchildren, health challenges. Not all of it easy, but all of it real. I looked around at these men, my brothers in all ways that mattered, and felt something I hadn't experienced since removing my uniform for the last time. Belonging. A toast, Mac called, raising his glass. To the ones who didn't make it back, to the ones still fighting their private wars, and to Colonel Jack Harrington, who taught us all what it means to leave no man behind. Glasses clinked. Eyes met mine, filled with respect I'd forgotten I'd earned. In that moment, I wasn't an old man struggling with parking meters and medical appointments. I was Colonel Jack Harrington, Special Forces, who had once commanded men's loyalty through the worst of circumstances, and apparently still did. No man left behind, I echoed, raising my own glass. Not in war, not in peace, not ever. 2 weeks later, I returned to the same parking lot. This time prepared with quarters and the parking app Sarah had patiently taught me to use. To my surprise, I found a space with a small sign. reserved for veterans. The attendant was there, checking meters. He straightened when he saw me. "Colonel Harrington," he greeted me, using the rank that had become distant memory until Mac's arrival. "Just Jack is fine." He nodded, almost shy now. "After you left, I talked to my manager. We've designated 4 spots for veterans now, and implemented a grace period policy for everyone." That's good of you, son. Not good. Right. He hesitated. "My grandfather passed last year. I never really understood what he went through. Why he was so strict about some things, so silent about others." "War changes you," I said simply. "Coming home can be harder than leaving." That's what my grandmother always said. He gestured to the reserved spaces. "This doesn't fix anything. Doesn't make up for how I acted. But it's something." "It's more than something," I told him. "It's recognition. That matters more than you know." As he walked away, I noticed a small American flag pin on his uniform that hadn't been there before. I smiled, feeling an unexpected lightness. My phone buzzed. A text from Mac about next month's gathering. I'd been invited to speak at the local high school's Veterans Day assembly. Sarah was coming to visit with the grandkids. The emptiness was still there. The nightmares hadn't magically disappeared. But something had shifted that day in the parking lot, when my past and present collided. I wasn't just an old man anymore. I was still Colonel Jack Harrington, who had fought for his country, led men into battle, and earned their loyalty through decades and distance. Some wounds never fully heal. Some battles never truly end. But as I carefully fed the parking meter and walked toward the diner, my steps a little steadier, my back a little straighter, I knew with bone-deep certainty that I would never again fight alone. Honor, like brotherhood, never expires. Even in a parking lot on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, when an old soldier finally remembers his own worth.